David, I'm liking the new apartment, fam.
Appreciate it, Brody. Appreciate it. Uh, I'm liking this angle you got me looking at. You know, it's like a side angle. I'm looking at you from the side.
Yeah, fam. I mean, I prefer this joint because, you know, we put a little bit of my artwork in there. I'm looking for a new piece to go right here. I was thinking another rapper piece, but I think I'm gonna go history. I was looking at some ancient Roman joints. It's like I don't really want to bring up the joint, but it's a paint. It's a painting with the Saifedean with it. Uh, that I might get up there. We're gonna see what happens. Some real art, you know. Niggas gonna ask me what it is. I'm like, yeah, I can't tell you because the name of the painting is just so brutal. But uh, welcome to Accident V5. I finally got to do this with you. Welcome to Accident V5. We are excited to have you guys once again. Like, subscribe, and I got an article coming out today at 8:06. I don't know why I said 8:06. Maybe because I finished the article at something 06. So, you know, check it out. Hold on. My laptop finna die. Yeah, check it out. It's gonna be nice. And I finally got all the ads in there right. But don't worry, we ain't got no real sponsors. So all the ads is for us. Uh, so I guess today we're gonna talk about something interesting. I'm kind of glad we get into like economics. And I think it's important for people to recognize that economics is it's the source of not just the way you spend money, but the way you live your life, right? Everything you do has some economic value. You know, even if you're, I guess, taking a deuce, everything it has some economic value that you do. And I think the best way to look at that is with the concept of time preference. Now, I've been reading the book, The Bitcoin Standard, and it has honestly uh, ruined one of my favorite economists. But I realized that, like David always loves to tell me, that I was believing two contradictory things. I was believing in myself that crypto was the way, and that governments shouldn't have control of money. But then I'm also believing, hey, when we go into economic recession, the government has to print more money, and it's not the case. But my favorite economist, John Maynard Keynes, he isn't who I thought he was, and this book really sheds light on that. So,
What you mean?
he,
What you mean? What you mean? What you mean? Uh,
well,
I
so
highly doubt we're gonna go read the Bitcoin Standard, right? Because
oh,
I'm reading a book on Matthew Henson next. So like I got a long time.
So, if you want me to try, I mean, I'm only 100 pages in it, but I mean, it's only confirming things I already kind of thought. But like John Maynard Keynes was born rich, he died rich. Um, he never studied economics at any school, and yet he developed a school of economics. And uh, it was very advantageous for governments to take on the things that he said because they wanted to keep printing money. The gold standard, as you guys are going to see in my article today, is the only reason that governments could not print the amount of money that they wanted to print. They wanted to print money, and you couldn't. There's no way you can print. You can't print your money. You can't print more money under certain circumstances. And the way that they look at it, the way they looked at it, you can't. There's no way. So they decided to jump off the gold standard and just go with the money price. And John Maynard Keynes was at the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944, 45, 46, I can't remember what year. And he was a guy who developed the concept of government we have now. Uh, since 1914, all the world's major governments, we're talking about just basically Britain, right? Since 1914, Britain and the United States since 1971, we'll bring that up later, have been on the gold standard, right? Britain, Germany, France, I think Sweden lasted until like 1932, 34. So like they've been on the gold standard because they like printing money, right? It's so advantageous, right? So you can just US could like print money in the Great Depression and get out of the Great Depression, which and that's called aggregate spending, right? I'm going on a tangent. He said if there is enough spending going on, the recession will end. That's what he says, John Maynard Keynes. So basically, the government's job is to keep spending money so that people can stop spending money and they don't have to. And governments took that like, okay, well, we'll just, we'll pay for people's lives, right? So, socialism comes into a little bit. And then it was like, okay, well, now we can beef up our militaries, which is the reason in the first place they got those there. They wanted to print enough money to fund their military. What happens is currency devaluation. So the people that have held the US dollar over the course of these 100 years, the British pound over these 100 years have been punished. And it comes down to, just the devaluation of a network, like a financial network. And it was all because of John Maynard Keynes. He encouraged the behavior and people thought he was special. But in reality, he was not an economist. And governments then suppressed the economic theory of people who was like, that guy's an idiot. Yeah, I mean, I've been believing two separate theories or admiring two separate theories, and I feel kind of alienated, but it's okay, fam.
Well, before you go too hard on yourself, like I want to ask the question. So at least when we were connected to the gold standard, when we were on the gold standard, printing more money meant that 1 ounce of gold was worth less. Like the more money you printed, right? Meant
Okay,
the more US dollars were minted, the more US dollars you needed to buy the same 1 ounce of gold. Gold was always worth what it was worth, but the US dollar was being devalued, right?
okay. So what happens is gold was at a fixed rate. So gold was not allowed to fly at a free market rate that we see today, right? We know gold's like 15, maybe 16, $1,700 right now. That wasn't the case. So what they would do is you knew 40% of the money supply had to be backed up with gold. 40%, just 40%. So, and that means, let's say you have $35 million is your total money. No, I don't know. Shoot, let's not do that. Well, 35 million times 2.5, whatever that is, that's 60, 70. Let's say you got 70 million. No, that's just times 2, 17. Let's say you got 87.5 million units in your currency and you're on the US gold standard. $35. For every $35, you have 1 ounce of gold up until 40%. 40% of 87.5 should be 35. Don't check my math, I just woke up. But 87.5. So that, let's say 87.5. So you got $35 million dollars that are backed up by 1 million ounces of gold. That's how it worked. If you printed more money, you suggest that you have more gold. You know what I'm saying? That's how it goes.
Kind of.
So,
but I'm more thinking in terms of the US dollar devaluing, right? Like the more
you print more dollars, the value of gold goes up. So yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So the value of dollar versus gold is gonna go up.
So my question, I guess, is, like now that we're off the gold standard, how does that play?
What do you mean?
What is the US dollar backed by? Like, what is there?
There's nothing there. There's nothing there.
So in theory, wait, before you jump back in. So in theory, we could follow John Maynard Keynes' theorem and print more money to get out of the recession.
Okay, right. But let me go back to what's backing it. What is backing it, right, is that we know the United States government does have, millions of ounces of gold, right? And trillions of dollars of gold. And like, we know that they have it. It's not interchangeable from US dollars to gold. They're not going to sell it, but we know that they have it. They've been stockpiling gold since the Great Recession. And they're not going to stop now because you know where we are inflation-wise. That's number one. Number two, gold, they also back it with other countries' debt, right? So you have like bonds from France or the euro or China, Japan, they have other countries' currencies in there. That's that. Yes, you could continue to print more money, but the thing about it is, if you do, you devalue the people's wealth. And this guy talking about time preference in this book, this is where the time preference.
Pause.
All right, let's go.
So you said if you do, you devalue the people's wealth. Let's
Yeah.
let's zoom in on that before we go to time preference. And I know this
No,
podcast
you
is
good.
about time preference, right? So before we
We
get
going somewhere. I feel it. Let's go.
there, let's zoom in. Like, what do you mean by it devalues people's wealth?
So as you print more money and there's no backing, prices go up. And so we're gonna go from like
Oh, prices go up, you say?
yeah, so prices go up. So what happens is like and this is it's gonna sound insane, but like let's say you have $100 in your total money supply, right? And let's say this house is worth $1, right? So that means the house is worth 1% of the money supply. If you print more money, it's still worth 1% of the money supply, which is now $2. If you were to go to $200, it's now $2.
But
Right?
is that necessarily the case? I guess is the real question.
No, that's not the case. It's just an idea. It's a potential. This is not a real
But
economic.
that's right. That's just how people maintain their relative position in the face of an expanding pool of currency.
That is how real assets maintain their value, not people. People's value don't go like that. And so what happened is as prices go up, and this is a great example. I don't know how old people are. I don't know. My grandmother said that when she was a kid, gas was 5 cents a
Right.
gallon. All right, my parents, when they were kids, it was like 90 cents, maybe $1.05, right? In the 90s, we know gas was like $1.50, maybe $1.30, because $5 in the tank actually meant something back then. All right. When I was a kid, I remember seeing $2.02, right? 2016, 2017, when I got to college, I could fill up for like $20, maybe $30 at the most, right? And my car has 17 gallons in it, so you can do the math on your own. But we saw the price of gas over an 80-year period, because my grandma was from the 40s, go to $1, let's say $1.50, right? Let's say in 2016, somewhere gas was $1.50. But more gas was on the market in 2016 compared to demand than there was in 1940, right? So why did the price go up?
I'd like to submit a theory.
Because it's definitely inflation.
Yeah. And I think what you said, like the maintenance of wealth, not just in real assets, but I'm going to take this somewhere else, right? So let's say you, me, and 10 of our brothers, right? 10 of our brothers, we sharing a pot, right? Like everybody got a tenth of a pot. And now somebody comes in, they're like, you know what, bro? I think we should add more people to the pot. And you like, well, who could they coming out of? You know what I mean? Like
they're gonna bring something to the pot.
Like who giving up they 10% so we can add people to the pot. And everybody like, we ain't gonna give up nothing. We just gonna add more. We're gonna get a bigger pot, right? Like we just gonna make the pot bigger.
Right.
So at that point, you know what I mean? Like you double the size of the pot. And now all of a sudden, right, what I used to have, they used to be worth 10%, dropped down to 5% because we added a bunch of people. Like sure, we increased the size of the pot, but the amount of people we added versus the size of the pot increase made my percent go from 10 to 5. But then you like, wait, but you have the option to buy more of the pot and keep yourself back at 10.
Right. And see, the thing about it is when they print more money, it's not like they print it and then they distribute it equally amongst the units. They distribute it where it needs to go, where they want it to go, right? So like the devaluation of people's money over the course of, those 80 to 90 years that we've seen, really 100, almost 10 years, right? Because we can start with 1914 with the British pound.
Yeah.
The devaluation of currencies is going to be continuous. I mean, I think even the United States prior to the pandemic was expanding the money supply by 5% every year. That's a lot. Like, we don't even know how big the money supply is. but we know it was expanded by 5% every year. And that includes credit creation, like buying a house with a mortgage, right, with money that does not exist. They give you a loan, but the money was never there. It's just the bank gives like a, I don't know if that's what a promissory note is, but they promise they're gonna pay somebody. And people look at, okay, so here's the money. Someone finds the money for them. They don't necessarily have it when they create the credit. Okay, this goes back to time preference. And I never thought of the connection of money to behavior like this. Never saw it. I know. Don't get me like this. So this guy, he goes, all right, so now we're going to a world of debt fueled finance. I don't know if you guys have debt, but a lot of people do. We love debt in this country. We love debt in this world. Debt fueled finance starts early. And so the guy, he goes, so he said, so think about it. This is what time preference is. I'm going to use the exact same analogy. And you can read the book if you like, but I'm going to use the exact same. So he said, you got two primitive peoples, right? We're talking like thousands of years ago, humans just started. And this guy, he fishes with his bare hands every day for 8 hours just to get enough food to eat for the day, right? But there's this woman, she fishes for 6 hours or 4 hours, and she uses the remaining 8 hours to build a fishing pole, right? It takes her 2 to 3 weeks with those little 4 or 5 hours, right? For 2 to 4 hours to build the fishing rod, right? Yes, she's eating less in the meantime. She has less. But that is what time preference is. She's investing her time into something in hopes that it becomes something, I don't want to say bigger, but that it makes her more efficient, we'll say that, or it'll provide for her more. It'll help her attain her goals easier. She comes back after building her fishing pole and she's catching the same amount of fish as the guy would with his bare hands in just 4 hours. So now she has an extra 4 hours in the day. She takes that, she builds a boat. She goes out. Now she's getting better fish, more expensive fish she can now sell because she's getting more fish than she needs to. Then she builds a net, then she builds this. And so the time preference is that she was willing to invest her time right now, invest her resources right now with the goal of her future. A lot of people don't think about their future every day. And he was like, debt-fueled finance is taking from your future, right? That's what debt is. Debt is saying, hey, in the future, I will have this income that I will give to you, right? So debt-fueled finance is about this. But we're going to go back to his point. He was like, think about the time preference that people have these days. I'm like, what are you talking about? First off, we're not even going to talk about the arts because he really goes off in the art section. He was like, when you have sound money.
Wait. Who is this?
Oh my God, I don't know the guy's name. I think his last name is Ammous, Ammous.
And which book is this?
The Bitcoin Standard.
Gotcha.
No, it's like 200 pages, bro. You gotta read it.
Gotcha.
So the guy, he's like, all right, so sound money. It inspires people to make sound decisions. So he's like, all right, so when you get old, when you get old, you have to, you're old, right? You can't take care of yourself all the time. You're not gonna be able to fish when you get old. So then you might have kids, right? He was like, look, having kids is an investment. Staying married is an investment. He was like, the household was the most profitable area to be in the 18th century. Well, no, not 18. I think it's 1800s. It might be 19th century, I guess.
19th century.
So he was like, it was very profitable. It was profitable in much of the 20th century, but it's not going to be profitable in the 21st century. And people have realized this and have suddenly thought, hey, I'm not going to get married. I'm not going to invest in my children, right? Because I have student loan debt. Because I need this. I don't have enough for me. Why would I create something else, right? So the financial system has warped in such a way. The money has created a situation where people don't even think that it's worth it to invest in a family. Initially, to be taken care of because you're old, but just that. And they said, this goes with the depression rates, right? It was like, what? I was like, this guy's going into everything. This is what behavioral economics is. It's not just money, it's life. So the guy goes, he says, humans require human connection. We know this,
Yeah.
right? Genuine human connection is not existing in this day and age, and it affects women psychologically more than men. And it's so rare to have genuine human connection now. And he relates this with bad money, unsound money. Read my article, The Sound of Money, on the Substack. We're going to keep going, right? This guy,
I feel like my pace is giving away how I
yeah,
feel about this guy's work.
this guy, he goes, oh, I hope you like it. No, but you don't know. I mean,
Now I'm gonna go read it because
doesn't have to, because I could be explaining wrong. But I'm telling you. And then he goes to talk about music. It blew my mind when I read this yesterday. He goes, back in the day, people spent hours, years perfecting their craft. And he talks about this one painting by this guy. It's called Orange Yellow. It's basically like he paints like an orange edge around like a canvas. And then it's like yellow at the top and orange at the bottom.
Mhm.
Sold for millions. And I was like, yeah, it looks like a kindergarten's work when I Googled it. But he was like, yeah. He's like, but Leonardo DiCaprio, not Leonardo DiCaprio, Leonardo da Vinci. And then you got Michelangelo hanging at the Sistine Chapel, and they had sound money back then. The money was sound. That the sound money of the Renaissance is the reason why the Renaissance came about. It was the first time they had sound money since the Romans died in Western Europe. And you know, you talk about the music that Mozart and Bach and all these other producers generated on sound money. And he goes back to this music. He was like, sound money produced, you know, Mozart. Unsound money produced Miley Cyrus's twerks. And I was like, that's hilarious. But I don't know, because he said, now we go back to time preference, right? Time preference suggests, do I want my pleasure today or do I want it tomorrow? Right? The music today that you listen to does suggest you want your pleasure right now. And the music back then may take more work. I don't know. The guy has a lot of points. And I will say, listen, I'm a conservative. So, you know, this is my field. I like this stuff. Right? But this guy over here, you see him, he's already acting the fool. So, I mean, what I'm trying to tell you is time preference is the desire to invest. Time preference is the heart of investing. That is what investing is, right? So if you think for a second that you're worth, that you want to invest in Ethereum or Matic or whatever, it's not happening today. Time preference is putting money aside in the event that it'll happen tomorrow. But investments happen everywhere. I mean, John Morant, we don't know how many late nights he worked, right? He invested in his craft and what he did and in what he has done. And now he just got his $180 million deal set up.
193, wasn't it?
Well, 180 what?
Wasn't it 193?
I wouldn't have known. I know it's a whole bunch of money that I don't have.
Yeah.
But he goes, you know, and he invested how much money and time did he invest in himself initially? How much stuff did he give up? How many decisions did he make? How many parties did he not go to just so he could work on his craft, preserve himself for this moment right now where he can ball out for a check? How long? And so the thing about it is, when you invest, whether it be money or in life, you're not doing it for right now. You're doing it for tomorrow. That's time preference. That's time preference. I'm gonna let David talk in a minute.
Yeah, we ain't got enough time left before the video turn off for me to talk.
It's been 40 minutes already?
We pushing.
We
We
gotta
put
have
hold
first.
up, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up. That don't nah. You said a lot of good stuff. You said a lot of good stuff. You said, and I know you were just reporting on the book,
Yes, I'm
right?
just reporting.
Right. So you don't even have a vested attachment to it yet. So forgive me when I poke a bunch of holes next week on next week's episode because we going for a part two.
Hey, look, I'm gonna keep reading the book. I'm gonna come back with some points. Hey, I like
I'm
that.
gonna read the book too. I'm finna,
Okay.
yeah,
Now you get it. Amazon probably had that done to you tomorrow, bro. For real talk. Maybe today.
I'm finna get it on Kindle. G. It's up.
The technology, man, they ain't got that
It's
this time
it's.
because I want a physical product and he did
But
time.
I ain't gonna leave y'all empty handed. I'm gonna put a little context, a little preface on it, give you a pre-read of what's to come. Um, time preference, time preference. I think the author of the book hit on a few points in the right way. And I think the author got a little bit too liberal with some of the concepts and a few of the other and a few other ways. And let's just briefly talk about, Mozart versus Miley Cyrus, right? Like this idea that this is connected to time preference. Mozart being, a longer stretch of time versus Miley Cyrus is fallacious. We're gonna call it fallacious. I'm gonna just say like, and
Yeah, and I got to shortly, so you on the clock.
I'm a preference. I'm just going to define time preference, right? So we're gonna look at a couple definitions real quick. And
Man, we gotta do a 3-part series for this, Joe. I'm ready. We gotta wake up earlier next time, bro.
and so in behavioral finance, this is from one site. Time preference or discounting pertains to how large a premium a consumer will place on enjoyment near in time over remote enjoyment, right? And if we go to another definition, time preference is the current relative valuation placed on receiving a good or some cash at an earlier date compared with receiving it at a later date. One of my favorite economists, Dan Ariely, he always did like in some of his talks and some of his lectures, he'd pass around a box of chocolates and be like, look at this box of chocolates. Would you be willing would you rather have one box of chocolates today or two boxes of chocolates
Oh,
a week from now? Right.
yeah.
And people
Yeah.
always are like, nah, I just wait.
That's one of those stories in the book.
I'll just wait to next week. Right. But
All
let's
right.
let's push this, let's push this out a bit further. Would you rather have one box of chocolates, a year from now, or one box or two boxes of chocolates a year and a week from now? So it's still 1 week time between them. And people changed, like their response based on how long they had to wait. And so the idea of time preference or time discounting is that we discount things that are in the future. And the part that really rubs me the wrong way is the way the author presents it. And I haven't read it yet, so I could be completely
No,
wrong.
I'm not. That's the way I present it, man. Because
It's
you don't got
it's
this.
a
You got your shit.
bias. It's a
But I'm
bias
gonna say,
inherent in our human nature. It's embedded in our very core human nature. We're wired, at least from an evolutionary perspective, to put things that are immediately in front of us at a higher premium than those that's going to take a little bit more time. And so I think there has to be a more nuanced discussion
I
on
think we gonna have a different conversation next week for sure. I ain't gonna lie.
there had to be a nuanced discussion on like why and how I can overcome this bias. Like you said, investing is a form of it, right? Like would
Yeah,
I
it's just a thing.
would I rather have, I think Ethereum right now is about 1070. I'm not actively looking at Chainlink or CoinGecko or nothing, but let's say it's at about 1070. Would I rather have 1070 in my bank account today, or would I rather, have 3,600 when Ethereum inevitably bounces back in the next 12, 18, 24 months? And
Right.
and I,
Right.
there's something rooted in uncertainty. We naturally don't like uncertainty.
Right.
Again, I listen to a few people and they say, like, from an evolutionary perspective, uncertainty back in the day probably meant death. You know what I mean? Like, if I don't know what's in that bush, I do better
Right.
to assume that's a jackal than to assume it's a butterfly. So yeah, we gonna get into it, bro. We gonna get
Well,
into it.
I'm gonna go ahead and end this for this week. You know what I'm saying? Like, share, subscribe, read the articles on the Substack. Check us out on Instagram if that jump been made by now. Check us out on Twitter, YouTube's. You can also listen to the podcast on Substack now. I noticed our downloads are going up over there, so I appreciate y'all for doing that. But yeah, just hold it down, man. Time preference is a real thing. Now, y'all got a choice. Y'all can wait till next week, or y'all can wait till next week.